Stragglers are welcome to join. Hi, Syteline User Network community. Thank you very much for joining us. From CAI, my name is Neil Battarbee, and I'll introduce you to my special guest in a moment. We are here to talk to you today and entertain questions, right? And have a conversation around building a data foundation for your manufacturing digital transformation. And the goal is to really provide some good, solid examples and use cases from the customers that we work with today. Before we get going, let me dive right in and quickly frame the conversation, right? So the bottom line is to stay competitive in manufacturing, you all, manufacturers, need access to better data. You need access to it faster. And the more data movement that you can automate and report on, right, through your infrastructures, the better, right? As I said, my name's Neil Battarbee. I am VP of Sales in the CAI Software Discrete Business Unit team. And I'm having a conversation today with my colleague, Matt Radford, who runs our professional services team. The agenda's up here. We will start by talking about and just framing the hidden factory, talking about today's situation a little bit and experiences that you all have that we hear from you, our customers. And then we'll move into the kind of the efforts of connecting your systems, getting access to that data. And really what everyone is here to do, or in your jobs to do, is to drive continuous improvement activities, right? So we're looking through the lens of manufacturing execution. We're looking through the lens of connected worker, right? Front end workers, with a goal of mitigating these looking to mitigate these losses that are generating hidden factories. So KPIs that aren't being met, and how to solve them. And then, we want this to be a good learning opportunity for everyone. And we love our Syteline User Network community. So we'll learn from you as well as part of this process. So a little bit of housekeeping. This is recorded. You people that registered that couldn't attend will get access to it. You will get access to it. Feel free to share it. Unless it's not actually the Q&A function. I think we're limited to the chat function here in Zoom. So please feel free to interact. I have the panel open with me on the screen. So I've already introduced myself. Matt, would you mind sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do and some of your experiences?
Sure. I'm Matt Radford. I'm a two-time previous ShopVue customer in both the aerospace and automotive spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And now, for the last 2.5 years, have been the director of professional services for ShopVue and helping to bring our solutions to others. And I'm excited to talk about what we do with Syteline and the user group. Thank you.
Yeah, so you get a lot of first-hand experience and a lot of managing customer projects, and let's call it second-hand experience, but it's all good real-world experience that you have, man. Okay, so the core problem today, right? You all manufacturers are drowning in unstructured data. You're not lacking it. You've got data coming out of every orifice. We've got some. I'm going to share some impactful kind of market stats that we had from other partners. I'm not going to say the name of it. You'll see it on the slide. I'm not saying it's our own, but it is from a parallel kind of ERP process. But it's agnostic. The content's agnostic, and it makes sense, and I'd like to share it with you. This is the first slide that we'll talk about to set the stage around data analytics. So this was a survey they did back in November this year, and well over 1,000, I think 3,000 different recipients that responded to this, all within the mid-market baby enterprise space, I would say. And they're really focused on understanding KPIs, data, and analytics. And I think the real good feedback here is there's still a lot of beginners, but even the beginners are seeing benefits. They're seeing improvements in their business performance. But you can see those metrics on the data leaders, people that have been running good data plays for several years. They're really getting good impact on revenue. I would say one of the biggest focuses for manufacturers is forecasting and predictions, right? So 25% improvement in manufacturing forecasts and predictions of whether your business model is going to be successful. Dashboards, right? We talked about data, we talked about dashboards, and you've got it coming out of every hole. It's usage, right? Unless you've got eyeballs on it, then it's just there. You're checking a box. So I think these usage rates have got a long way to go. They're all less than a quarter adopted. But it's movement and it's growth, right? And actually, one of the ratios is even as a data beginner, is not that far off compared to the data leaders. So really, it set the stage for a journey, right? Data, access to your data, what you do with it is a journey. Start somewhere, have a plan, pivot it. You make sure your data is defensible and real and accurate and real time. And you'll find the use cases to uncover the hidden factory and improve your performance. So Matt, this is actually from one of our sister companies, right? ShopVue. This is a Possible survey that they did, their big frontline connected worker solution.
Sure.
There's a lot of paper on the shop floor, right? When you start working with a ShopVue customer,
Yeah,
what are you seeing? What's the norm?
it's a perfect example of where to start because a lot of companies are still at the point where their operators have to walk around. They might have to take measurements from machines. They might have to, adhere to various paper travelers and what we're seeing with our larger, more complex companies is travelers and paper measurements that measure in thickness in inches, very big, very heavy, very paper driven. And so I think this stat is very relatable to me and what we see with our customers. Um,
Yeah,
so I'm
absolutely.
interested. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and that metric, that survey that we did, this was like well over 1,000 survey respondents. It was a couple of years ago, so hopefully the numbers got a little bit less now, but it's almost 80% guys still using paper on the shop floor. That's a lot of manual processes and lagging data, right? Even if that data is being key punched into a QMS or a ERP, it's not real time. It's just there for reporting purposes, and it eventually finds its way. That's best case. Worst case, it gets scanned and filed away and never actually used, right? The next slide, let me walk you through that a little bit, is the maturity model and use cases of data. So the first stage there on the left-hand side is about having visibility into the current status, right? Putting a foundation in place. You start to go a little bit further paperless. You start to digitize some of your performance data collection. If you put an MES in place, you can start to optimize your time spent. You get to optimize and get visibility into your WIP. And at the same time, you're going to get data that can be useful for starting to focus on priorities for continuous improvement. As you go up to the right, you're going to start to see more value out of your data, right? So why an adverse reaction is happening, being able to understand patterns and understand why, right? A simple Pareto view on asset downtime, right? Can lead you down a path of, all right, we need a more robust PM program, or hey, we actually need to start planning for capital replacement project here, right? The cost of non-availability of this asset is just doesn't make sense anymore. Um, Matt, you walk out on a lot of shop floors. What are you seeing? Like, are you seeing lots of big screen dashboard, lots of user experience that are presenting feedback to Gemba Walk support and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Showing from the very bottom of the pyramid where the shop floor is operating and then linking that back up to the top of the pyramid where the executives and the people that make decisions, are aligning the strategy.
Mhm.
Um, One of the big trends we're seeing is trying to draw that line, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But absolutely, visualization, you know, showing the data to the people that need it and where that fits in where they need it. It could be the operator, it could be the supervisor, it could be the executive level, right? There's um, a really good trend in what you're showing here and kind of moving to the right in how people are using data to move forward and make good business decisions.
I'm going to talk a little bit about AI because it would be wrong for us not to at this point. Um, I guarantee that you guys are all having conversations, you're all part of conversations internally, right? How can we leverage this AI model, that AI model? What use cases can we solve for faster, right? By leveraging AI. That predictive, the third column there, what will happen is where everyone wants to be, right? You want that predictive capability of a problem. So the support team can be involved in supporting the assets, humans, machines on the shop floor and get ahead of it. We at CAI have access and are working with a large AI team, and lots of good solid use cases. You can't use AI. You need to be at stage 1 and 2 before you can leverage AI. You need digital data. You don't need paper. You don't need lagging data. You don't need key punch data into a system and then report on later. To really be predictive and get ahead of the game, you need that foundation in place. On the far right hand side, I'm not even going to spend too long on this. I would say stage 4 autonomous actions is more appropriate for like true process manufacturing, right? Where you've got software controlling um, systems and self-learning and kind of complete lights out manufacturing for most of our customers, right? Within the manufacturing execution world and the connected worker world, there's too much labor still involved to have that autonomous process. But I would say stage 3, predictive capability, leveraging AI and cognitive models is where we should all be aiming for in the next, have some use cases in 2026, guys. Keep following our channel, and we'll make you aware of what we're working on. Now, Matt, let's talk about data value and personas. Let's talk about hidden factory a little bit. I would love your perspective on this next slide, and then the biggest challenges to operational visibility into plant. Right? What do you see
Sure.
when you see this?
I see a bunch of individual entities that may or may not have some collective reporting. One of the big things when it comes to unifying data is like finding a way to collect data across a suite of machines, warehouses, shipping docks, factories, um, and really not playing into the silo game. And oftentimes when we try and create solutions to, individual problems, we come up with very unique solutions. And one of the things that our CAI suite of products really helps with is giving perspective to the individual aspects of these machines, what they do, how they do it, who's working on it, what's the efficiency, what's the OEE, and how do we get that data to people that need it, when they need it, and how they need it. And my experience and that of our team, I think, is very much along the lines of like many of these are treated individually. And so that's my interpretation of the diagram. And I think
Sure.
what a lot of our customers struggle with, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 100%. Everyone's, you know, got the goal, got the objective of, meeting their KPIs, meeting their shift, targets, meeting their week targets. We're all focused on meeting goals, right? And I think looking at data through a lens that gives the right perspective of data to the right persona, whether it's a shop floor operator, whether it's a supervisor, whether it's a CEO, whether it's a CFO. And that's what we'll get into next a little bit as we look at um, a kind of a point of view, right? We're talking about aligning data here, right, Matt? And you've already teed it up. But if your CEO can't see the financial impact of a machine that went down on the shop floor, you don't have that foundation, right? You have silos, right? Um, we see a lot of great dashboards out there. Some of those dashboards come from us. Some of them are homegrown, right? And they're using data from our solutions. Um, but a true foundation is well thought out, and the operator's data is in real time machine status, the maintenance dashboards giving predictive health, giving alerts. They all roll up seamlessly, and that data is used to do what? It's used to solve problems, right, and drive strategy. Um, so, Matt, talk a little bit about, I don't know, pick a couple. We're not going to walk through each of these, but maybe the line supervisor dashboard or something like that.
Yeah, you know, we definitely have a few layers of dashboards we can do. And my perspective on this chart, like we talked about, was like drawing a line from top to bottom. How do we get there? What are the goals and objectives? But the other thing is that all too often in our customers, it comes from a top-down perspective. And I kind of like to look at this chart and think like it should bubble up. What do we need from the people that make us money? What do we need for our machines and our people to help us out? And so for me, manufacturing operations and having a line for operators, having supervisor visibility, and then having, your technical manufacturing engineering staff with a view into how the process is performing, whether that's machine or people, is key, right? And we don't need to get too much into the corporate overview, but I like a bottom-up approach to this chart because it's going to ensure that that line is drawn from the bottom right up to the top and that everybody is looking at the same things. Um,
Yeah. And it's using that data to your own advantage, right? To meet your KPIs and to meet your, performance requirements that, you know, the COO, when they build the budget, right? He knows he's got the real time data, he's got the roll ups, he can compare year on year, quarter on quarter, etc. Um, so now we're going to dive down a little bit and we're going to give you some examples um, of some operator dashboards. And man, we all talk about OEE, right, as a calculation, and it's built up from the fundamentals of granular data. Um, what are operators running machines? What do they care about?
Oftentimes, it's driven that performance is key, right? That's what they're measured against. And so we can certainly measure almost every aspect of traditional performance. And OEE is one of those things. Labor efficiency is another one. Performance by parts, cycle time, performance to quality, scrap, all of those things we can report on. What I think is not focused on enough here is the gamification item.
Mhm.
We have a lot of ways to set goals for people to work towards, to display dashboards, and those goals could be related to financial performance or productivity performance. Um,
Mhm.
we can very easily show how a machine or a person is performing We can also do things like predictive, which you see in the middle graph there, right? We have an order, an operation, we've reported quantity. Where are you? Where should you be? Are you ahead? Are you behind? We can give the people that make decisions the information, but I do think that what we can bring to the table is enough information to the shop floor to really make people interested in what they're trying to achieve. It's easy to say shift one did X, shift Y did B, but tying it together, making sure people know what the goal is, and keeping them interested with the data is something we can do very well.
And I would say the bit that you didn't touch on there, so I'll add to it, is if those KPIs are not being met, if the cycle time to standard is not being met, or there's a stop loss event due to, kind of scrap reporting,
Sure.
then any good solution should have that digital kind of and-on process and escalation process to get the support team in, right? Don't put it all on the operator running the machine. Make sure that they can get access to maintenance, to automation, to supervision, to quality, right? To resolve any KPIs that are not being met and get them back on track. But don't rely on them getting on a radio. Don't rely on them leaving the workstation to go get support. Have business logic, right? Engage those support teams and get focused on the people that are making you money. All right, so that's a focus on the operator, and let's move up to the line supervisor a little bit, right? And understand what they're responsible for, right? They're responsible for a cell or an entire line, right? And they can't manage it just by watching one machine, right? So what does their dashboard look like, Matt? And what are the primary goals or the benefits of a good kind of line supervisor set of metrics?
Sure. So I guess in summary, it's less time at their desk and more time addressing the problem. Um, these dashboards can be filtered by machines that are in the supervisor's realm of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guesswork, there's no entering data, there's no come in tomorrow and figure out what happened the previous day. It's real-time information. Um, and yeah, I guess dashboards are one part of it. Another thing that jumps to mind that we do well is also alerting them, because if you don't want supervisors at their desk looking at dashboards, or if you're in a good spot, you have dashboards on the floor. Um, but sometimes alerting is necessary, whether it's text messaging, whether it's email, letting people, maybe they're not in for the day, maybe their efficiency is dropping below what the plan was. There's many ways that we can give supervisors this layer of data that's going to help them more effectively manage their hourly people. Um,
Okay. And I would say it's the right level of data. So it's not about like finding faults, right? Which is the bottleneck operation. There's not normally a bottleneck, right? But it is now. So it's not just finding that and identifying it. It's being able to get access to the facts behind it, right? And why that's occurring. So I think in any good data model, make sure you've got a good overlay and the ability to tie together quality and utilization and the whole picture. So supervisors and leadership can actually coach with that data, right? They can solve those problems. You want supervisors not writing reports or key punching data or any of that. You want them to be coaching and getting the most out of their team. That's the primary goal of their existence, right? Their job description. We're not going to go up to like the high level, like corporate CEO dashboards. We're actually going to take in a little adjacent story now, and talk about industrial engineers, right? Plant engineers, manufacturing engineers, process engineers, all sorts of different titles. But yeah, Matt, what's your experience on working with these? You had them on your team in the past, and they're a big part of your MES deployment teams today, right?
yeah. you know, two things, process and people are paramount, right? So being able to understand what the process is doing is super important to the people that design those processes, right? Not just the people that execute them. And so we have this layer of dashboards that can give those people real-time feedback on why assets are down, how parts are performing, you know, are we scrapping? Are we not? Are we taking longer than standard? And then even to go one beyond that, how are our process parameters performing, in terms of CPK and PPK and all the process capability characteristics? Like we can expose a lot of what the process is doing that's independent of, the people and give that to the engineers that are responsible for it. So there's corrective actions, discussions, maybe some information or data that they haven't seen before that can drive continuous improvement. I find this level to be very powerful when it comes to improving your performance as an organization.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and I've worked with some customers where the ownership of MES, right, the ownership of ShopVue has been within the continuous improvement team, and they've been responsible for paying their own salaries essentially and bonuses and what have you, with the ability of putting process execution controls in place, whether the pokey yokes or changes to processes, improvements that are delivered through MES, but the data that sits behind this, the what's it doing now, and then post improvement validation is all coming from the shop floor and the good quality data that we're already talking about. So I know often we think MES is owned and run by operations. They're the main persona, the main customer of an MES. But don't forget engineering, continuous improvement. They can be a big stakeholder in your project team and a big driver for the selection and the deployment of a good tool. All right, so there's a some use cases of how to's and what's and benefits. Let's talk a little bit about roadblocks and how to bypass, how to move through those roadblocks and actually get this good quality data working hard for you. So let's start with another feedback from the analyst report that we touched on earlier, right? So as companies mature, they're transforming their processes, their technology, and their change management then becomes and user adoption becomes the biggest challenge, right? If anyone's done a big ERP project or a big digital transformation project, change management is where you need to pay the most attention. So the companies that are just getting started often actually don't have as much of a rigid process in place. So the change management for them is often easier because they're not dealing with struggling of existing processes and breaking things. As long as they're deploying, kind of out of the box workflows and tools. And then the other one I would point out here would be lack of skills or talent, right? You're all hiring younger generations, and these younger generations are all coming well equipped to support technology, to support rollouts. So some of the limits of, when I mentioned the aforementioned change management, maybe with an aging workforce, maybe, I'm pushing back on this. We've done it this way forever. Why do I need this newfangled, tool in my workday? You're not getting that from the new younger worker. They grew up, they were born with a phone in their hands. So there's an expectation that they're working with technology in the workplace, right, and not just following. This we'll talk about this briefly, and I think the roadblock is about the and Matt talked about it earlier, the data silo trap. So ERP front and center, your master data, your system, but oftentimes, and this particular example is using our Possible connected worker tool. It's often seen as a single pane of glass in process manufacturing environments, less in discrete. But they can tie in with IoT, with SCADA, machine PLCs, health and safety systems, and be connected to a hot data store. Um, Matt, what perspective can you give around like your customers recently that would have made a shift to doing something a bit more and maybe using APIs to connect more of their systems than they have in the past?
Sure. Like we like to be sort of the digital center of the hub and spoke wheel, right? Like we specialize in connecting to things, bringing in information. So some of our larger aerospace companies now are working with DMI that comes in and for those of you that aren't familiar with our products as direct machine integration, and we'll bring in measurements directly from the machine and populate, plans that control operations. And so I think the goal for my customers and what I think we're seeing around the industry is how do we provide good, solid data collection, integration, and controls to make sure the product is good, right? And we can sit in the middle, or we could be a piece of it. But interplay, interconnectivity, is a big theme for us now and what we're working towards.
And I think less and less now, you used to get the big software providers that used to say, look, if you need XYZ, if you need PLM, if you need MES, if you need this, then you need to buy from our ecosystem. There's not many players doing that anymore, right? Public APIs, well documented APIs. Um, the market's driven, like, we want to select best in breed now solutions, but we want them talking to my ERP, we want them talking to my main business system. So that's good, but it is a focus, it is a challenge, I would say, for early stage digital transformation adopters is dealing with those silos. But find the right partners, make sure they've got APIs, make sure it's well documented, and then build the business logic to use data to make it work for you, right? And eliminate dual data entry, right? If you're touching data more than once to make it useful, then stop and work. Actually, we have a question here. I missed it earlier. It's only a minute late. Um, do we support, does ShopVue support RFID hardware or tracking production stages, or would a standalone RFID software tool be required to then integrate with the MES system?
Um, RFID is pretty standard. For ShopView specifically, if it's a keyboard wedge or something, that we can translate that RFID code into a unique identifier for the operator, that'll work. I don't think we have many RFID badge vendors that we don't work with. It's just really, is it a keyboard wedge to identify that person appropriately?
It was Tariq that asked the question. I'll respond with a focus on like label printing for WIP. Um, and yeah, as ShopVue can print RFID labels, you're just dealing with a multiplier on your unit cost of labels. I can't remember whether it's like a 4x, I think it's a 4 or a 5x multiplier on the per label print if you're printing out to a reel of tags that have an RFID chip in them. But yeah, you don't need a standalone system to use RFID in WIP. If you're looking to go into inventory and WMS, we've got a solution that will actually leverage RFID and kind of an Android app running on a Honeywell device. right, to be able to manage cycle counting and that kind of thing. But I see RFID hardware as and the printed labels as a not a technology, as a commodity that can be used by most software solutions out there. Man, anything else to add on that topic?
Well, I guess my answer was more towards like identifying yourself through an RFID and
Mm.
reporting production. But if it's definitely label printing, then sure, that's a discussion, and we can definitely scan them and input that information automatically
Okay.
through the label.
Yeah, Tariq's responded and he said, okay, the concern is really minimizing the tracking effort required for
Yeah,
WIP, for WIP manufacturing steps. And maybe a call would be great. Yeah, we'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you, Tariq.
for sure.
Let's get that scheduled. Um, all right. I'll talk to this a little bit. And these are numbers and metrics from our connected worker possible solution. Um, so I would say, the robot here is digging down a bit more into the labor shortages and the skills gaps that we were talking about. And I think, it's ongoing, right? Matt and I travel quite a bit to our customer bases, and people are struggling. They're struggling to hire um, and hold on to people. It's a competitive landscape, not necessarily even with manufacturing. Um, it's about retiring, but it's not just about people retiring. It's about expectation of that next generation, right? Um, there's a talent. Um, there's an opportunity, I would say, for your digital solutions that you use in your business to be a talent magnet and a skill bridge solution, right? So I don't know how many times we hear that, yeah, we've got documentation, we've got good standard operating procedures, but you know what? Jimmy and Pat and Philip have been working here 40 years. They don't need any of that. They know exactly what's what. But, maybe Jimmy, Philip, and whatever the middle name was, maybe they're not following the standard operating procedure anymore. They're just doing it based on tribal knowledge, right? Those three are going to retire eventually. So I would say make sure you're future proofed with your next steps in your digital journey, where you can digitize, document, manage your sub operations, right? Your standard operating procedures. I don't care whether it's set up, make ready for a changeover or assembly or, skill set certifications before you start a robot welder, whatever it is. Make sure your engineering team, your process engineering, your manufacturing engineering team is talking to those guys on the shop floor before they retire, right? Make sure your SOPs are accurate and then digitize them and then have a solution that's delivering spoon feeding to you, to your operators, how to do the work. You'll see those time savings, all these metrics here. I'm not going to read through them, but we have so many case studies, so many referenceable clients that will give feedback on both possible and ShopVue, where they've got reduction in these hidden factory losses that we were talking about earlier, and improvements of OEE and performance. And everyone, you're all motivated to improve these numbers because that's what we do. We're all good people, and we want to improve at what we do. For those of us that maybe are only having some exposure to ShopVue for the first time, let me walk you through the building blocks of ShopVue. Right, we optimize your people, right, your humans, your processes, right, your orders, your machines, and we do a good job of tracking your material throughput through your manufacturing process. ShopVue's built in three areas, really. The first is labor management there on the left-hand side. You manage your shop activity. Many of our customers still work with us for time and attendance, streamlining, accruals and PTO and overtime. If you're part of a bigger enterprise and you've got a an enterprise level solution across multiple plans, then we'll just connect with it. Your Workday, your ADP, or UKG, whatever. But ShopVue can be a front end to an HRIS system, a system of record. As you move to the right, and you migrate up the maturity curve of digitization, I guess, of MES, you get into paperless, right? You get away from those paper travelers that we saw earlier. You're integrating with your machines, right? Matt mentioned the DMI, that's our IoT solution. And you're taking advantage, whether you're a regulated industry or not, but you're taking advantage of genealogy, right? Process genealogy, production traceability. From there, we deliver also with digital work instructions. We've touched on that. And then we've got integrations, that smart factory APIs there on the right-hand side that will eliminate those silos, will connect to your ERP, your PLM, your QMS, you're going to run out of acronyms here, your maintenance management system, your HRIS system, right? We want to make sure that your business workflows are supported with data. So that's a good overview of ShopVue. Those, please reach out if you want to talk more and get a good understanding. But I want to get back to a few more. We've got a few more minutes left of this webinar. Matt, do you drink this?
Occasionally, when the time is right.
This is actually the 0.
Not the 0% kind.
The 0.0 version here. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a brand that we all recognize, right? So Possible, our connected worker system, is deployed in 120 breweries. They have 40 use cases of standard operating procedure delivery, and they've got 10,000 of users. And like they're doing millions of jobs. Now, a lot of the Infor Syteline network is not of this scale. But my point here is relevant in a way that the favorite quote I got here from my time, we met someone from the Heineken team, is they said, if Possible goes down, then we stop brewing beer. So for us, we know it's essential that maintenance, quality, production, right? They're all involved in making the product, whether it's beer or tier 2 supply chain in the aerospace or automotive, right? It's still a product, and your systems that you partner with are going to be critical to your delivery. But in this case, and in most cases, you're going to be delivering savings, productivity gains. That's the eyes on the prize, right? $25 million in annual productivity savings. And there's no way they spend that much with CAI Possible. I wanted those of you that may not have seen Possible, I think we had some representation at the last trade show in Atlanta. Wherever it was. We're in Atlanta this coming March, but they joined us. We had some members of the team join us there, and these are the use cases that they touch on. Right? It's safety, it's maintenance, it's 5S, it's PPE checklists. It's maintenance execution, right? And it ties in with MES. They can sit hand in hand and side by side. What does it look like? I guarantee that you guys have a locker of these operating procedures. We've got an AI engine that will ingest these documents and that will tune them and put them in a format that can be ingested by Possible, or even the MES, right? The ShopVue digital work instructions. We revision control these plans, and they put them in the hands of the frontline users. They do their execution, and all of that data is used and collected and at your fingertips for everything that we've just talked about, right? As far as data, as far as BI, and understanding what adverse activity is happening, right? And being able to fix it. So we are going to be wrapping up. We've gone 45 minutes right now, but I'm going to leave you with a couple of things. One last set of feedback from our mother from the other brother from the other mother partner. Um, but maturity with data leads to results. Um, See, this looks similar to the one we did earlier. Maybe it is. I'm not sure. I'll have to check. But look at those. Look at those numbers. Cost reduction, right, through efficiency gains. Even as a leader, which is the darker. Actually, yeah, the darker color is actually getting more as a percentage because they're starting with nothing, right? They're starting with manual processes. So on average, data beginners were seeing a 43% in efficiency gains through deploying the data strategy and BI and insights. For us, and I think this is the closing slide, guys. So once you're ready to take the next step in your digital transformation, select a partner. I know that the Syteline space is a great network. Um, you'll manage your initiative, right, through reviewing your high value business processes. And you need to look through the lens of, all right, what's going to return my fastest time to savings and ROI? And that's going to mean focusing on error proofing the processes, right? Collecting good data, understanding how to use it, and closing the loop with fixing the losses by putting those process execution controls in place. That is, in turn, going to improve your OEE or your OLE, whatever KPI you're tracking is important, and drive that ROI. And finally, take this is just hitting the nail for the third time with the hammer. Eliminate those silos, integrate your IT systems, right? And build some governance around the program and how to use data to drive conformity across sites if you have sites. I know a lot of the customer base here in Syteline can be more than one site. Use your investment in technology and digital transformation to drive conformity, and move on from there. All right, so I'm happy to take people off mute actually if people want to ask a verbal question, or if you want to hit us up with questions in the chat. Either either way. Does anyone else have any other questions? Don't be shy. Matt, I do see one coming in talking about implementation.
Sure.
What's the best single prep task that you can do before you launch an MES project? What's the one valuable thing that you can do before you start?
Stakeholder alignment, understanding the goal and how you're going to get there, right? And some of that involves us. But I think the best thing to start with is understanding what your company is looking for and what you want to achieve. What are the goals? And for maybe many people on this call or others, that's not clear. And for others, I'm sure it is. You're being asked to,
Yeah,
find a way to do better, how to align KPIs, how to drive better performance. And to me, um, that alignment is the best starting point to kick off this type of thing.
all right. Another question. Will the webinar recording be shareable? Yes. Tori, my marketing team, will follow up with everyone and share a link to the recording so you can share it with others. And Ryan, I know you missed the first half, unfortunately, you said. Um,
James' question there, and the
yeah,
answer is yes.
that's interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll read the question. You can
It's
answer it.
not all. Sure. Any solutions for zero machines, 100% manual manufacturing and assembly? Absolutely. Um, on the ShopVue side, that's kind of where we started, was tracking people, materials, productivity. Um, we've obviously grown into machine monitoring and getting everything working together, but don't be intimidated by, anything that you saw today. We absolutely can handle no machines, all manual.
I would say our investment in the digital work instructions, the connected worker module side of ShopVue, was purely focused on the labor, right? The zero machine, 100%, bench
Yeah.
assembly or welding, framing, whatever it is. So this wasn't a sales pitch, so we didn't give you a kind of an intro slide to who his CAI is and who we work with, but we work very diversified customer base. Matt mentioned aerospace and automotive as part of his background, but metal fabrication, uh, consumer products a little bit too, right? Ceramics, right? I don't know. There's we can keep reeling them off. Um,
Yeah.
but
For
yeah,
sure. And like I have a couple of Sightline customers that are 100% manual, aerospace and defense, want to evolve into some of the things we're talking about today. And if we couldn't handle that kind of manual process, it would be hard to say that we can handle the harder, more digital side of things. So I that's a good question. Thank you so much, James. And yeah, we can handle that.
any other questions? Like the slide says, the best question is the one you're afraid to ask. Okay. Going once, going twice. We will wrap it up. Thank you for your time. We so enjoy the Sun user network, and it's a great community. Hopefully, we get to see a bunch of you in Atlanta in actually March. I think it's the end of February, early March. I can't actually remember. It is on my calendar. But yeah, stay engaged and enjoy the community. And um, for a couple of you that you wanted to reach out for a further conversation, like Tariq, please do. We'll happily engage and understand your needs specifically. All right, thank you everybody. Appreciate your time and cheers, Matt, for talking with me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.